All right, looks like we're all here probably. Maybe Cam may join us later on. He had to work. There's Brett, the cartoonist. Hi, Brett.
Here.
And Rob, the other cartoonist, other artist. Rob got some great work on Instagram where I got into him. I was going to have Rob do some work for me on the movie, but I had this guy that worked for me before on the movie, and I ended up using him. But I appreciate you were ready, willing, and able. So
no problem, absolutely, Jerry.
So anyhow, I like your stuff.
Thank you.
So Brett has the Dust Bunny Mafia. He takes real stories and then creates creates the cartoon, which is it's interesting. I like that.
There it is, right there.
Oh, there it is. There it is, right there. Thanks, Casey. Casey's got Uncle Frank's place. Oh, there's Ted Patakas. All right, welcome, Ted.
Welcome.
Nick, wait a minute. I thought I had Nick in here once. Okay, now Nick's coming in. Let's see, what else? What are other people who, Tommy, you do some kind of, you got a podcast, right?
Yep. It's called Before the Lights. I interview those in sports, music, and entertainment and how they made their mark. Just had Larry on. It'll be on in about 2-3 weeks. We'll have that one up. And starting a whole series that's going to go once a month on the mob.
Okay. All right. Cool. So see, Mike Mafucci, I see you on Facebook all the time. You're my friend on Facebook for sure. Nice to meet you here in person.
Thanks.
Now, you have a blog, or I'm trying to remember.
No. Basically, Casey's partner there on
Uncle Frank's Place. Okay, all right. And, I knew you had something to do with it.
And I admin the Wise Guys Social Club and the Omerta Social Club.
Okay,
Facebook
yeah.
Groups.
All right, yeah. I just hit you guys here on Monday. I always hit all the Facebook groups with the new podcast on Monday mornings when it comes out. So I don't know. Has anybody else got anything else they want to plug here? I know Eric just going to plug being retired.
Yeah. I highly recommend it.
Highly recommend it. So anyhow, I sent an email. I'm not sure how this is going to work. If I want to keep doing it or not, I can only do 40 minutes unless I have the paid account, and so we're going to. That's why it said 30 minutes. It only gave me 30 or an hour, so I assume we could go up to 40 minutes. If we get cut off here at the end of 30 minutes, I guess we do. I don't know. But we tried this before on Larry's Facebook page. Larry has Las Vegas Mafia History Facebook page and the Mob Summit Facebook page that he keeps up, and he blogs for the Mob Museum on called Mob and the Popular Culture, which he's interviewed Nicholas Pileggi and some people like that. And so we kind of wanted to talk about mob movies. Everybody's interested in mob movies, and so if you got any questions of any kind, why just shout them out. There's not that many people here that we can't just raise your hand and shout it out or something. But
hey, Larry, I watched Friends of Eddie Coyle this morning.
Oh, did you see it?
I made it a point to watch it today before we got to go. Good movie. I liked it a lot.
That's the first time you'd seen it?
Yeah, I heard so much about it in all these groups, and every time people start talking about these kind of movies, that one always sort of tends to come up as a favorite. And I like the author and the other movies they've made out of his stuff. So
he's a great writer.
It's a great 70s vibe to the whole movie and all that stuff. So
I read that back when I was one. And I thought, oh my God, this guy's got it. He was a U.S. attorney for a while. What's the author's name? All of a sudden, it's
George V. Higgins.
George V. Higgins. And he was an assistant U.S. attorney in Boston. So I'm sure he worked some mob cases, and he's got it. He's got it down. That working with informants and how you twist and turn people and use them and oh man, and that kind of intermediate level of gangsters that the Robert Mitchum character played is a professional criminal, and he's kind of a guy in between guys. He's a guy that carries messages. He's a guy that maybe does something finds steals a load of clothes and then fences it through the mob guy that had the bar, the guy that owned the bar. Well, he's a famous actor too.
Peter Boyle.
Peter Boyle. He was great
Yeah.
at in that kind of dangerous world. And man, it's I'd highly recommend it. So I guess we just kind of talk about mob movies. If anybody wants to bring any particular one up now, this Netflix series is out, Pier City, which is, I think it's pretty good. Now, a lot of people say they're just going over the same old stuff over and over again. But what I liked about it, of course, it was from the police, from the law enforcement viewpoint primarily. They only used 2 mob guys in it, if you haven't seen it. But that John A-Light dude, who I'm not sure what his story is, he supposedly is an enforcer for Gotti. And then what's his name's all over the place?
Michael Franzese.
And really neither one of them were particularly involved at that level with these commission guys that they're going after. But the FBI, they got some fantastic footage. They got the technical guys to talk about planting microphones. Those guys never, ever, they will not talk about, I don't know how they got them to talk about their work, but I am supposed to get to interview one of them hopefully later this week. I got an email from a PR company, a public relations company that's working for Netflix for the series, and they want to promote it. So they got hold of me and asked me, I looked at it last weekend before it even came out, and they asked me for just my words about it. And I emailed them back after I watched it and told them what I thought of it. And,
look at you.
Yeah, really. Really.
Awesome.
I'm a big time now, man.
You deserve it.
Never thought. But and so I told the gal, I said, why don't you get me interviews with some of these people? I'd love to put them on the podcast, and I'll plug your movie. So I interviewed one of the lady agents, Charlotte Lang, the other day, and that one is going out in the morning because they want me to release it right away. I had this whole plan on releasing three-part series on the mob and the Teamsters that Cam and I did, and all edited, and that kind of blew that apart because hopefully I can interview this Joe. What is it, Caramusa?
Cantamasa, yeah.
Cantamasa.
The guy who went into
Tommy
the houses and placed the bugs
right,
and all
right.
that. Yeah.
The cable guy.
The cable guy, yeah. Right, thanks, Eric. And I tell you what,
about a dog.
that footage. I mean, can you believe that they have the actual footage, and they show the guy as he knocks on the door, and then they were able to see through the window while he's in there working on the cable TV. And then he gets the guy to come over and hold the flashlight for him while he's trying to do something. It was dynamite. It was gold.
Take a bite out of crime. Yeah.
It was gold.
Yeah, that was Quack Quack, right?
It was Angelo Duro, yeah.
Dario, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it was good to see something from that side instead of from the other side.
Yeah.
That's what I enjoyed about it.
Now, admittedly, your ratings go up. You can get some really good mob guys, I think, a little bit, but they're really few and far between. I wonder why. Of course, maybe they didn't try even. They didn't know how to get hold of him. I've got hold of that Michael DiLeonardo, Mikey Scars, who was made by Gotti at the same time that Junior Gotti was made. I interviewed him on my podcast, and I got hold of him. I wanted to interview him again right on the heels of this thing to ask him a little bit about it. And I don't know, he emailed me back. Actually, I texted him. He texted me right back, and he said something cryptic, but something about when he started feeling better. So, hope he didn't have the COVID. Hope he's okay, because he's a great interview. I don't know if you guys have listened to that interview I had with him, but he gave a blow-by-blow description of the night he was made. It was fantastic. I'm like, my jaw was dropping on the other end of the phone.
You should probably try to get Larry Mazza. I'm sure he'd be happy to do an interview with you.
Oh yeah.
Let me write that down. I think I'd see him around, and I think about it, and I forget about it.
Hey Mike, do you have your poster with you? You should brought it in.
Hang on, it's in the next room.
Yeah, you gotta go get it. Mike had a little he was in The Irishman in the background.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. I remember that.
Mike is an actor. He's been in several movies. Yeah.
He's played a mob guy a couple times. But
well, Mike, you got the leg, you got the face, man, you got the hair.
Yeah, you know, he had the poster.
Love it. Nice. That's cool. That's
awesome. It's a good movie.
Yeah, I enjoyed it a lot. That's one of those ones, you know, there are a lot of people who it's too long, not enough action or whatever.
I don't think it was long enough. I think it could have. I mean, it could have been a lot longer, and I still would have sat through it. I mean,
I was actually able to see it in the theater. It was playing in the theater in where I live. So my wife and I dragged her.
Oh yeah.
And, it was good. To me, the 3.5 hours flew by, but of course I was biased since.
Yeah, it was probably better in the theater than it was sitting at home. There's too many distractions at home. You get in the theater and it's like you're focused on it.
And
it's a different experience. Oh, there's Nick. Hey, Nick, got your phone. Got your picture
so this is my first time, gentlemen. I'm not as tech savvy as I should be, but
for a young guy.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I just, you know, I don't know. I'm trying to get into it, you know. But it's an honor to be here with you fellas. It really is.
Well, good. You know, we're talking about Bob movies. If you've been able to hear that, there's another person trying to get in here.
But I enjoyed the heck out of Irishman. I agree. You know, some of the comments that maybe they could have left a little bit of the stuff at the end, you know, after the action kind of went down and they followed his life for quite a while. But, you know, as a mob movie fan, the more the merrier for me. So
I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Regardless of if I was in it or not, I thought it was a good movie.
Right, so back to Fear City, if I can jump in real quick, Gary.
Yeah.
One of the things, and Tommy from Before the Lights, and on my screen, he's in the middle with kind of the orange shirt on from Las Vegas. Tommy and I were talking the other night about how things like Fear City, you know, you're going to get critics on everything. But I think one of the things that's happening in Las Vegas, in New York, people like us who are you know, pay close attention to that world are going to be interested in it. But also, I think there's a whole new, no matter what someone's age is, but there's a whole new group of people, whole new generation, whole new group of people who don't really know about the Five Families, don't know that much about it. They don't know that much about who was the Joe Pesci character in Casino. So I think they want to know, and I think shows like that, like Fear City, revive a lot of interest in the mob. And so now I think a lot of people are going to be interested in seeking new ways to find out about it. So I think there's value in that regard too.
Yeah, I agree, Larry. I just said yesterday when I was actually on my way to the Mob Museum that I was talking with my mother that they need to do something similar to Fear City on the fall of Vegas.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I think that would really get some interest. And as Larry, as you and I spoke, you know, my own nieces and nephews have asked me, you know, where was Stardust? Where was Sands? Where was, you know, DI? You know, they're not old enough to understand. To them, it's Bellagio. And, you know, and when I said Resorts World, they had to actually kind of think about where Resorts World is on the Strip in comparison. There used to be another casino there. And, you know, when I talk about Venetian, and they understand that. But when I say Desert Inn or Dunes, it's out the window.
Yeah.
You know? And what my mom brought up was a really good point, that she's really surprised there's not a documentary on the history of the Tropicana, because it's still up and running. No. And there's so much history behind the Tropicana. And I didn't even think about that, but I said that's a really good point.
Yeah, all the way back on the Tropicana now. Now, you tell her that she might want to see Gangland Wire because it's got a lot of that stuff in there. And you can rent it for $1.99 on Amazon. But that's
I'll never do that.
Can I brag about Gary a little bit? Gary's been bragging about everybody else, and I'll shut up.
But let me tell you there's something else going on with this. I gave an interview to National Geographic. They flew me back to Washington. I gave them an interview. And I gave them, in an English company, I got them all the copies of all the wiretaps from that investigation. There's another company that's Mark Wahlberg runs. There's 3 different companies that have been working on this exact story, but nobody's come out with anything yet. So there'll be something. It's coming. I just don't know when. I just hope it's the one that I'm part of.
Yeah. I interviewed Gary. I interviewed you at the Trop, actually.
You did. I just found those interviews. I'm going to try to figure out how I could use those, Casey.
Yeah.
And I know you guys know this. Gary is in Nick Pileggi's book, Casino. Gary's Gangland Wire site, his documentary, Gangland Wire, his new one about the mob wars in Kansas City. Gary's the link that pulls all that Kansas City, Las Vegas skim together. Gary's got a lot of that. And when Tommy and I were talking about how new generations of people, 40 million people a year go to Las Vegas before COVID. But, a lot of those people don't know that history, but they want to know. It's like Fear City. They want to know about the 5 families of New York.
Absolutely. And they have no idea. So, Gary, let me just tell you, to quote Terrence O'Malley, Kansas City's never really been given a fair shake because they were involved with a lot of stuff, behind the scenes. And Cam, you'll know this more than anybody. In Chicago, especially, or in New York, they'd have been a very, very small crew. But in this little bit of city, they ran the whole city, and they ran. And Nick Savella ran with an iron fist, even though with his background of hating the establishment, much like Carl Spiro, and he had that Machiavellian kind of thing, like you said 100 times. And being a Kansas City native, I really appreciate that you and Terrence and all this. People don't really know, and like you said, Larry, people that go, kids my age and younger that go to Las Vegas. I personally never been because I could lose all my money in Kansas City. So but I really want to come out and see the Mob Museum because it's I've heard nothing but good things about it. And as Kansas City it's like Tuffy and all them guys there was something they were forced to be reckoned with. I mean,
yeah, that's true.
As
Bill Owsley said, the retired FBI judge, he says in my movie, he said, who went out to tell Alan Glick to sell all 4 casinos? Cleveland didn't do it. Chicago didn't send somebody out. Lefty Rosenthal didn't go to Alan Glick and say, you got to sell this out, dude. Tuffy DeLuna went out and said, you got to sell this, dude. And what he's saying, you may find yourself, your life expendable, but you may not find the lives of your wife and children expendable. So that was right out of Alan Glick's mouth, and he testified to that. So that's not something somebody made up.
Yeah, I had an opportunity to meet Tuffy after he got out of prison.
Oh, did you?
Me and my dad and my brother bought Antonio's Pizzeria in Walnut Deli from Tony Wright's daughter, Fanny.
Yeah.
And Vivace was right next door. I had up there to meet him, and he was just, I know you're a man of code, and I don't know if admiration is the correct word to say, but I think you have a certain respect for men coming from being a man with a code.
He has a code.
Yeah, and those guys with a code. It's just, and that's the reason. Like that's what kids these days, all the Instagram gangsters and everything, they're putting drugs and money on Instagram, and they can't figure out how the hell they got caught. It's like, who ratted me out? Somebody must have ratted me out. The prosecutor took the day off because you got to sit at home because you did this whole damn case for him. So it's just, guys, it's a whole nother world out there, and crime. I'm not a gangster by any means, but crime's not worth it these days. It's not worth it. Maybe back in them days there was maybe a little glory and a little honor among thieves, but nowadays
there's none.
None at all. Absolutely not.
I have a funny story about Tuffy after he got out of the joint, and he'd spent 18, 17 years, I think. He was in his 80s, as you said, Nick. He was an old guy when he got out. So he starts going to we have the boats. Their casinos is all they are. They put them FP within 1,000 feet of a navigable channel. And so they call that a boat. And everybody here says we're going to the boats. Well, you're going to a casino, dude. Hey, you're not going to the boats.
Yeah.
You're going to a casino.
Just because Sam's got a little moat around it doesn't mean it's a boat. Yeah.
Tuffy starts going to one of the boats, one of the casinos, and he's playing poker. Just in the card room, playing cards, and somebody sees him and recognizes him and tells the gaming commission, and they banned the poor old guy. I thought, come on, give the guy a break.
Yeah,
he's not. I did some contract work for the gaming commission, and I promise you, nobody is going to. Mob people are going to infiltrate anything in the casinos in Kansas City, and probably nowhere in the United States anymore. But
I would think he would almost have some allure to people. Like, you know, if he, I know
right.
that legally,
Yeah.
legally they're not supposed to, I guess, be around that stuff maybe. But you know, as far as like a manager of a place like that, you know, I've heard that, you know, a lot about that, about Mickey Cohen and those guys coming to the fights and stuff. You know, people would show up.
They're drunk.
Guys, yeah.
Just because they're there, yeah.
Yeah.
So mob movies. Anybody else have any questions about any mob movies?
Do you guys remember Atlantic City?
Yeah, with
Yeah.
Burt Lancaster. You know, like Atlantic City, nothing's hardly ever been done about Atlantic City except that
Oh my
movie. I
God.
can't think of another one about Atlantic City.
Boardwalk
Yeah.
Empire.
Boardwalk Empire, yeah.
Yeah.
But
Oh yeah,
It's so
Boardwalk
good.
Empire.
It's so good because Atlantic City, because it's so reflective of this small time mob of that's his life, and yet he's so insignificant, and it's just pathetic kind of as he grows older and nobody knows all of his contacts and stuff. It's probably more reflective of most mobsters.
Yeah.
You know,
Oh, I agree, Tim. I agree. These guys
And
get older and they don't
it's a
have any
full life.
power.
Yeah.
Yeah, I liked it a lot. I think I always talk about that movie Hard Eight as being one of my favorites, and Atlantic City kind of reminds me of that. It's the same thing. You know, he was apparently that character in that movie was from Atlantic City actually too. But it's, you know, it's just the aging mobster that, you know, it just didn't turn out the way they thought it was going to be. It's just, you know, it's kind of like that Eddie Coyle one. And also I think Donnie Brasco was the same way, where it just, you know, it kind of shows more of a, it's just a sad side.
Yeah.
The glamour. They're this close to always being, you know, there, but they just never get there.
Yeah, lefty Two Guns Ruggiero. He was always like right there. He never backed on through, but he was always right there. And he died, I think, kind of a sad, lonely death, of what my friend Steve St. John said.
talk about a code.
Yeah, the scene where he's like cracking open the change from the parking meters. That was what got me. I was, you know, you're just like,
the score's a score.
Yeah, it's just there's nothing, you know.
That's not glamour.
That's not glamorous.
Yeah, there it is right there.
Although we used to have a crew here that was going down through the Midwest. They were mob associates, and they were breaking into pop machines, laundromats, and they would hit parking meters too. They had a whole a lock making set up in the back of a van. They got popped down in Texas somewhere. And I guess they were making pretty decent money by doing, you know, if you think about it, you got like a 10-story hotel, and there was a Coke was $1, and there was a machine on almost every floor, probably at least half the floors there was a machine, and they just go zipping through all those Coke machines, and I don't know how many they do it a night, and they were just traveling. They went to Oklahoma and set up business from Kansas City, and out there they just would go out all the time and hit machines. That was their life.
Good thing they didn't have to go through any way stations. I'll tell you that. They've been in deep trouble then.
It's not going to work nowadays because they all have ATM.
It's all good. Yeah, it's all credit card now. Yeah, there's probably that. You know, criminals have to adapt, don't they?
That was one of my favorite scenes in The Sopranos. If you guys have watched that, it was one where the guys came to shake down some of the modern businesses, and the modern business, they're like, you know, what do you mean? Like, we can't take money out of a till, or, you know, like that. They're like, this is all regulated, and the guys like had no idea, you know, how the new corporate world had kind of changed around them. But that was funny.
No, I guess Tony Jr. found a way out to do that. Didn't Tony Sabella found a way to skim a lot of the ATM.
He did, yeah. There's a real life story there. I'd do a movie on that. Nick Sabella, our boss's nephew, great nephew, I guess.
Great nephew.
Little Tony Sabella, and he had a company that refilled ATM machines, and he started skimming about 25 grand a month out of that, but they caught him with, and because I think it was a total of $250,000. Am I right on that, Nick? I can't remember.
Yeah, I think it was about 245, 250.
Yeah. And he had it going for about a year, and he pulled that. I mean, it seemed like he had a going business. Why didn't he just? I guess he needed more cash money.
Well, you always need more money. That's something never is going to go without need. I'll tell you that.
Well, you know, these guys, when they get caught, then they figure they made about 25 cents an hour for every hour that they worked. When they figure their time that they
Yeah, the 8 months he did was probably worth the, the 50, a couple $100,000 they got. So,
Really? But
hey, Mike, as a New York guy, Mike, what's your take on Fear City? What's the buzz in New York?
A lot of great surveillance picks. A lot of the information is rehashed, although Netflix did a great job of putting it all together. So it's a lot cleaner, a lot more, a better production.
Very, very good production.
But a lot of great surveillance picks came out of that. I know my group's been posting them left and right.
I still can't believe they had the actual video of him putting the wire in Ruggerio's house. That
was unbelievable.
Who has their blinds open like that? Well, I mean, especially in that life. Like,
I didn't think that was real for a minute. I had to look.
I had to look at it. Yeah.
I was like, that actor looks a lot like him. I was like, this is real.
That's real.
Oh yeah.
That was great casting.
Yeah, because
they nailed it.
Yeah, I figure I would have seen that somewhere or something already, and I'm like, this doesn't look familiar to me, so I didn't.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah.
They had a lot of good pictures. A lot of pictures I could have I'm not a blogger like you gentlemen or anything, but I've been studying this since I was 14, 15, a little over 20 years. But so they had a lot of surveillance pictures and a lot of, some audio I heard. Like the very beginning, the very first episode, the guy, he's that motherfucker there. Like that guy, I've heard that go there. That's a guy right there. I'll break every bone in your body. But,
yeah.
But I was very happy with it. I've watched it 2 or 3 times over and over because, you miss stuff the first couple of times. So it looks like, Gary, I've listened to all your episodes probably 15 times each because there's stuff you missed,
Absolutely, And that Fear City, like Mike said, the production values were just they were over the top. They were good.
Oh, yeah.
I was really surprised they played the audio of Paul Castellano and his maid.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I was almost like, well, can they, that's really going
over the line on the
privacy there. But, at first, like, you can't really tell. I was like, are they playing it? And then I rewound it and turned it up. I was like, holy crap, they're actually playing that audio on there. So,
they had to put that in as evidence to get that. To get anything taken under Title III, you've got to get an order from a court. And so once you get the order, then you go to get it, but they're only going to have what's been entered as evidence in court with an exhibit number. And I went through that with the tapes I've got. And the only thing that's kept at all, because there's a lot of cool stuff out there that wasn't kept because it wasn't, I got something going here.
Introduced as evidence?
It wasn't introduced as evidence. Yeah, thanks, Eric. So that they had to do some legal work to get all that stuff too, and they had to go through a lot of tapes to find all that. Man,
I bet. I mean, the red tape headache of doing something like that. Just I can't imagine, But yeah,
they must have had an agent that took a lot of that stuff home too. I bet some of those surveillance photos. I wish I'd have taken stuff home. I didn't take anything home. I think back, I had some of the coolest stuff you could even imagine. I didn't
Too straight and narrow, Gary. Too straight.
I didn't even think about it.
No, you're just doing the job, and you're just doing your job. You don't think it'd be a podcast. What the hell's a podcast back then?
Yeah. I mean, there's got to be tons of stuff out there. I'm sure, people at the time didn't think it was going to be of any value.
Right. We didn't have any
it's
idea.
Like what Larry said about mob movies and stuff, how it's always the next generation. There's always going to be a group of people into it. I'm interested in Frank Costello and that era, but, that's all way before my time. None of that was happening. And I came years after that, and I still find it interesting. There's always going to be. But, it's just somebody had the foresight to, just keep all that evidence around and it would still be around, who knows where it ended up.
I'm sure somebody's got Frank's hat.
Yeah. That would be,
that would be a piece of memorabilia right there.
With a bullet hole in it. Yeah.
What about if you got the bandage? That would have been great too.
Yeah, really.
Yeah, it's crazy. You get the next generation maybe in some of the families, though. It's just like they don't realize it either. Throw it out. That was Grandpa's thing that he was collecting. It's like,
well, that was the time Poppy got shot in the head. No, just throw it away. No big deal.
Yeah.
Mike and Casey have talked about this, and Tommy and I talked about it the other day too. I wonder what happened to the slip of paper in that shooting.
Oh yeah.
The slip of paper with that what was it, Mike and Casey, 650,000 or something from the top.
bunch of numbers on there. Like I always wonder, is that really the actual slip? You know, is that a picture of it or is that some recreation of it? You know,
Where is the actual slip?
Yeah, you know, who knows who kept that kind of stuff, but
If
that'd
that-
definitely be in the Tropicana documentary. You know, that
Yeah.
there's a lot of stuff you could.
That'd be a great. If
documentary.
somebody had it, that'd be a great addition to the Mob Museum.
Yes, it
Yeah.
would.
Oh,
That would be
absolutely.
unbelievable. That'd be almost as good as the wall of the St. Valentine's Day Massacre.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's
Yeah.
amazing though is, you know, Frank gets shot and the only one that gets in trouble for it is he himself,
That's true.
along with
Yeah.
losing $3,000 in cash that some cop took from him.
I know, you know, it's kind of like it's like an offshoot of mob movie genre, but you know, like Robert Raines was saying at one point, they were talking about doing kind of like a like a garage hunters show or whatever about like some of the stuff he has to do to go find those artifacts. And I like, you know, that would be an interesting show for like something like the Mob Museum or something. Like, how did they come across these and what process do they have to go, you know, to vet it, to like, you know, how do we know this is real? You know, where'd it come from?
Yeah, that'd be hard to authenticate.
Yeah, I'd be interested in watching something like that though. That'd
Absolutely.
be a cool series.
Yeah.
Or
Well,
crawling.
Gary, didn't you have an FBI agent who had a gun that was involved in the?
Oh,
What was that, Gary?
Oh, it was it was kind of a long shot that the museum might be interested in it. The supervisor of what they call the One Squad, that was organized crime squad, would have been Bill Owsley's supervisor, a guy named Gary Hart, and he was there through that whole thing. I tell you what, this guy supervised the skimming investigation, and then in the middle of that, there were two agents over there at the Kansas City office that were dirty. And so they since he already had this offsite and this super secret deal going anyhow, and these agents in from out of town, they brought in 4 more agents that ran wiretaps on these 2 agents who were helping some guys, covering for some guys that were stealing from interstate shipment and taking a piece of the action. So he ran this secret investigation from another offsite to investigate these agents, and ended up getting them both indicted. And he died, and his wife was trying to figure out what to do with his gun, the gun he carried during this whole thing. So I got hold of Larry. I thought, well, maybe the Mob Museum might be interested in that, and they didn't seem to be. And then next time I talked to Bill Owsley, he was helping the wife get rid of the stuff. Why Bill said that he just took it to one of the local gun stores and sold it.
Oh man!
I guess I should have bought it myself, but
I don't want
know.
to know about stuff like that. Oh man!
I don't know what kind of cachet that has. But
Right.
I imagine if somebody was able to dig through like NYPD or Chicago PD's evidence room,
oh
you know,
man.
find stuff in the back of some, you know, closet on the bottom. There's probably boxes of stuff that's just unbelievable.
Could be.
I know when we Mike and I interviewed Larry McShane, who wrote the book on the Chin, and he works, I want to say, for Newsday.
I think the Daily News. Right?
Daily News.
Daily News, right?
The Stephanos Newsday.
Yeah, and but he was saying that, you know, when he writes a book like that, they have like just this huge basement where you can go down and they just have pictures.
Yeah.
You know,
Wow.
and I was, man, just to like have a day down there, you know, thumbing through some of the cool pictures. I'm sure they've got some coverage. You know, there's probably a lot of pictures that have never been published down there that we haven't seen.
We'd be
Cool.
down there for 3 or 4 days and be like, oh, it's been an hour or 2.
I know, right?
Get them on the podcast.
Yeah.
Bring a pocket scanner with you.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Yeah, I tell you what, I'm amazed on the Facebook. Every time you turn around, there's some new batch of pictures coming out. Like, damn, where did they get all these things?
Yeah. I'm surprised that I haven't, you know, been approached by anybody like to take them off. You know, I've never had because I'm getting from not from like a family person, but from like a Newsday or someplace. You know, just going like, yo, dude, you know, if you look on the internet, like a lot of the pictures that we posted at Frank's place, if you go to buy them for a publication, they're like $400. You know, for a piece and all.
It's more for a license to go out and put them in a movie or something. So
But,
I don't know that whole.
You're using them for educational purposes. Is probably
Yeah, that's what I use it for. It's educational purposes.
But I've seen a couple come up in documentaries and stuff too that were I'm pretty sure they didn't get permission to use this picture. These are some of the pictures like I've seen on some of these groups where it's like the Terra Nova one is where they're in the pool with Lucky and
yeah. That's all over the place.
And I know they're pretty protective over that picture and stuff. And it's like it's how these copyright rules work for documentaries. It's kind of hitch, I don't know if anybody has the time to pursue.
No, it doesn't seem nobody ever pursued me yet. Knock on wood. There's a lot of stuff out there. I just found out there's a whole bunch of old wiretaps that were illegal wiretaps done on politicians here in Kansas City in the 30s in an archive. And so I'm kind of working on another documentary. I don't know, I'm bogged down on it. I filmed a couple of interviews. It's going to be about an election fraud in 1946 in which the mob conspired with certain elements of the mob here in Kansas City conspired with the Pendergast organization to make sure that a particular congressman wasn't reelected. And they were doing it because the president, Harry Truman, asked the Pendergast organization to make sure this guy didn't get reelected because he was being a pain in the ass to Harry Truman. And of course, Pendergast goes to his mob connections, and they're the ones that really got all the ghost voters and rigged the election. Then when they got caught, Kansas City started an investigation, and they got caught, and they started a grand jury investigation, and they pulled all the ballots out of election, out of the normal files and put them in a vault. Then the mob guys paid a guy to go in and blow up the vault and stole the ballots, and they never were heard from again. But the guy gave a full confession to the FBI. But it's even a kind of a different kick on it because the U.S. attorney was Tom Clark, who was a Democrat appointed by Harry Truman. And if you really went into this and exposed it on the federal level, it was going to lead right back to the president of the United States. I mean, everything old is new again, huh?
Yeah, right? The hoax.
Yeah, really. It was pretty topical, really. So I've gotten into that. And we were looking around. We found these wiretaps of Tom Pendergast and a guy named Kaz Welch and a couple other politicians talking about Johnny Lazia, and they were just talking politics.
That's huge, Gary.
But it's they're all out here at this Mars Sound Archive. They tell me I have to get permission to use them from whoever donated them. I haven't got that far yet. I'm just kind of reviewing them to see if I can use any of them.
That's awesome, man.
They're just a little bit off. My story really takes place in 1946, but they're talking about the same kind of election fraud in 1934, which we had this back in the 30s, and this was during the war. Everything kind of stopped, and then in 46 they had a need to do some ghost voting and rig an election again. So they just went back to the way they did it back in the 30s, where they used to do it when Pendergast basically controlled all of the city in Jackson County.
That's awesome. Hey, Gary, can I ask the cartoonist a question? And by the way, thank you for doing this, Gary. This is fantastic.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
I mean, I think everybody would agree. I'd love to see us do this on a regular basis.
Absolutely.
Hey, for the cartoonist. So one of the things I liked about Fear City was, back to that, is, you guys work with images that are kind of implanted in the public's consciousness. When you looked at Fear City, you saw a young Donald Trump. It kind of was a documentary of the Deuce, the fictionalized version of 70s New York. You saw a young Donald Trump. You saw a young Rudy Giuliani. How do you guys, when you visualize how you're going to portray well-known public figures, I'm guessing to some people, those earlier visions of Giuliani and Trump were a little bit of a shock because they didn't know probably that they were even involved in that world. How do you guys work through that when you do cartooning?
Which one wants to go first?
You can take it.
Well, I'm 33, so I already knew who Donald Trump was, and I knew who Rudy Giuliani was, so I can't really answer that from a perspective of not knowing who they were. So I don't know if I can answer that. Maybe the other cartoonists can answer that.
Well, just sort of how do you draw? I mean, do you work with a younger Trump, an older Trump?
It depends. Like if I were to draw Donald Trump now, or I'm not sure I understand what you're asking actually.
Just how you visualize the people you draw, you know. When you see a show like that, you know, it just sort of brings a whole new perspective on who those guys were. Just curious about how you guys come up with the images you draw.
I mean, for me personally, it's a little different because I tend to stay away from real life people. So I do a lot of cartoon, specifically animals, because frankly, it's easier for me to draw animals than people. And a lot of my inspiration growing up was, you know, Looney Tunes, Animaniacs, thanks Casey, and things like that. And so like I naturally just was drawn towards, when I would fictionalize things, drawn towards animals, because animals are everywhere and it's something that, you know, humans have always lived around, used, you know, have pets, and so it's something that's easy for everyone to connect with. But, you know, one of the things I do is I'll take real life, you know, mobsters that have animal nicknames and transform them into the animal.
That animal.
And so
That's great.
Like recently done, the sticker that Casey showed was my version of Chin.
Chin.
So I changed him into a chinchilla, and I have him wandering around in a bathrobe. And like I just try and, you know, whenever I doing a new one of those characters, I find something interesting. I'm trying to incorporate those pieces into the portrait I'm drawing. So if I know that they were a bootlegger, you know, I'll have them have a flask, you know, hidden, you know, in their arm or something. But like with, like Rob said, I'm 32, so we're about the same age. I have been reading, you know, mobster and secret society books and stuff like that for as long as I can remember. I mean, I did a middle school paper on the Gestapo, so like I remember, you know, doing that kind of research. So I don't think, you know, I'm the right. Yeah, it didn't really faze me. I know the people. It was nice to see some older pictures, and actually, was like when that came up in your city, seeing the picture of Donald Trump back then, it was like, oh, that's interesting. And
Wasn't quite as
I've heard stuff about it, but I haven't really researched that per se.
You know, Larry, I've used illustrations in all my movies. And I have this guy, Adam Shaw, he lives in Fayetteville now. He used to live in Memphis. I first met him, and he's moved to Fayetteville. And he wants a picture of the person that I want to depict. Yeah. He just made up those FBI agents, but he just wants a picture of who I ask him to depict, and he just does, you know, kind of not really exaggerated, but a little bit of exaggerated, you know, depiction of whatever age they are of the picture I sent him. He makes them that age. So his process seems to be that find a picture and then I'll go off that. He doesn't really try to learn about them and then go them out of his head and try to come up with something. I think Rob probably does something like that too. Some of your stuff I've seen, Rob, are pretty lifelike. They're not.
Most of the stuff that I draw or illustrate are usually from photos. And if they don't look a lot like the photo, they at least capture what the moment, what the photo feels like. And all I would say is that drawing or illustrating is just another way of telling a story or describing a story or showing a story, just like photography or video or journalism. Those are all different ways of telling a story. And they all kind of give you a different feeling. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Because that's what I did. Is I would ask Adam to tell a story. I would describe the story. I'd do it with stick figures even, and say, "Here's the story," and then write out what the story was. I want you to depict this story. This is what happened here, and then he'll depict that story in their facial expressions as well as what they're doing. And I'd ask him to make something big enough that I could use one photo, because you pay him by the square, by the frame. And so I'll have him do something that's big enough that'll have two different things going on in it, and I can use it at a couple of different times. Plus, then you can cut it up and zoom in on it and do that kind of thing. It's I tell you, this filmmaking is you got to constantly be figuring out how to not spend so much money.
Right. I wonder sometimes like how much time and effort some of these actors put into some of these movies. I know one of my pet peeves, like with documentaries, because you were talking about, Rob, like when you do things, you'll usually do it from a picture, and then you see some of these documentaries where they do these reenactments, and I'm like, obviously, if you guys have made this documentary, you've done some research and you've seen these pictures. Like, can't you make something that looks sort of remotely, or like hire actors that look kind of like the person?
Depends on your budget, Casey.
I mean, like guys with goatees are being like Albert Anastasia, and they've got skinny ties, and they're I'm just like, it's
probably a little harder,
that expensive to just kind of put a little bit of more effort into it. I think.
You mean like a little more character, like more of an illustration versus
just more like I know when the real documentary that I was in on that Frank Costello thing, when they do the reenactments, like they got Luciano, like I said, with the skinny tie, with like a modern suit. He's got a goatee, and he's blonde, and I'm just like, the guy doesn't look anything like the real person.
They just don't do the research.
But a little, but obviously, from the information that they had when they made this, they've had to have seen pictures of it. They've probably looked through tons of them.
Once again, Casey, they probably had a really low budget, and they had a buddy that was willing to do this that looked like that.
Come on, Gary.
Well, these two cartoonists are fantastic, Gary, that we have here.
Yeah, really, you guys are good.
Hey, Gary, would you mind, and I don't know what order everybody is on. Is everybody in the same order on all of our screens? Would you mind going through and everybody saying what their favorite mob movie is? I'm just kind of curious if everybody sort of sees.
Okay, why don't we start with Eric? Why don't we start with Eric Tyler up here? And
I'd say Goodfellas.
Left, Goodfellas.
Yeah.
Okay, I agree.
Why, Eric?
Goodfellas.
Why, Eric?
I think it captured from the associates to the soldiers to the capos to the boss, just all the different levels at kind of a pretty critical time for the mob. So I don't know, I just liked it, and I liked the love story too. The actress was pretty hot.
I agree, Eric. That was my favorite one too, because I like those stories, those mid-level guys, the guys that go out and do the work. But their relationship to the made guys, I like that.
The way they felt that pressure,
part of it, yeah. Okay, Mike, how about you?
I have to go back to The Godfather. I mean, it's the movie that got me interested, and the granddaddy of them all.
Okay.
Still my favorite.
All right, Tommy.
I'm with Mike. Godfather for sure.
Okay, Godfather 1, I guess both of you are saying. One.
Yeah, the thing with me is 2 is 1. Just the transformation of, Michael and the whole storyline.
Exactly.
It just set the whole scene for, I think, mob movies going forward. And I think it's what it made 2 so good is because of 1.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. That's the point.
Okay, Rob.
Mine's not a movie; it's a show, and it's not The Sopranos, but it's The Wire. And
oh my God!
I lived in Baltimore for 4 years. I went to art school there, and I just have to say that they seriously nailed down that show, all the way down to people's accents. And a lot of people who were in that show are from Baltimore. And when I lived there, I still saw them filming the last 2 seasons of The Wire, so it was pretty cool to see all that. It gets more into just the organized crime. It gets into like the bureaucracy within the police department and the government, and all the corruption. And it's just so deep, and it's true. It's amazing.
It was. It
Great
was.
show.
As a friend of mine that was in narcotics at the time, I was kind of on beyond it by then. said, man, that show gives away everything we do. Those guys didn't know about cloning pagers, that they ought to flip out their pagers until they saw that show.
All that stuff has to be based off of stuff that really happened, because the creators, David Simon wrote for the Baltimore Sun, which was their local newspaper, and Ed Burns was in the homicide detective. So I know that they got a lot of their stories and stuff from real life.
Oh yeah, a couple of three of those lazy ass old policemen and commanders. I'll tell you what, they're there, dude. They are there.
I've seen them before. They're all there. Great.
Okay, Brett.
So I'm actually going to go for a more independent film called Lucky Number 11.
Oh yeah.
It flew under the radar. It was very small, but it starred Morgan Freeman, Ben Kingsley, and like Lucy Liu, a whole slew of actually A-list actors that you would expect. But it really showed a good conflict between like two bosses that grew up together, kind of raised through the ranks, and then tragedy struck, and they end up going up, to war against each other. Sounds very relatable.
I'll have to look for that. I've heard of it, but I don't know if I've ever seen it. I have to look for that.
Yeah, Kansas City Shuffle. Yeah.
Yeah, Ted, how about you?
Yeah, I'm gonna go Goodfellas.
Goodfellas, all right.
Yeah, just liked all the characters.
Yeah, you're in good company. Casey?
I'm gonna go Sopranos. I know it's not a movie, but that's kind of what got me into this. That and The Godfather.
Yeah, the Sopranos it was good. It was life imitating art, or art imitating life, rather. It was good. It was really
I think
done.
with a lot of these stories with these guys, like we were talking about the Irishman being 3 hours. There's a lot going on, so it's kind of hard to tell some of those stories in a single movie. Where the Sopranos, you had you could spread it out, and the characters really kind of developed and stuff.
Yeah, and they changed them,
they did.
What was a young guy?
Christopher.
They really developed his character big time all the way through. He's got a podcast or something now, doesn't he?
Yeah, him and was it Tony Sciarippa? Yeah. It's really good. It's really good.
Is it? I haven't listened to it. Okay, let's see. Nick, what about you? What's your favorite one?
Can I get away with sort of a tie, gentlemen?
Sure.
All right.
We know Nick would want to change the rules.
I'm probably being a crime buff. I'm also a movie buff, huge. But I'd say the movie that got me started in the actual genre would be Murder Inc. It was about the canary that could sing but couldn't fly. Kid Twist. But it really got me into the genre because I saw it. Obviously, it was made in 64, 65, something like that, and I was way before my time, obviously. But it kind of got me interested in that because I saw it probably 8th grade years, freshman year, and but then my second close would be Mean Streets. It's not really much of a mob movie, but kind of how kids that grew up in that life kind of like that's one of my favorite Robert De Niro parts. Johnny Boy, he's just a nut, just a complete nut, just blowing up mailboxes, and it just. But the thing got me in this whole genre, it would be Murder Inc. Absolutely. But I like Goodfellas, but I turned before Blu-ray, it was a 2-disc set. I turned it off before the second part, all the bullshit with all the drugs and all that. Just after, I don't want to see that. It's just, But
I tell you what, Nick, that Mean Streets.
Yeah.
I knew some of those guys over in Northeast. I knew those are based on real people from over at Northeast Kansas City, aren't they?
Oh my God! Like I was trying behind me. I live in the North End. My family's from the North End. I tried to get I'm on Campbell. I call from Don Bosco, so I tried to get a nice little shot of downtown, but that got fucked up. Anyway, but yeah, I just because my dad grew up. My dad wasn't. I guess you call him a connected guy. I guess, but he was around all that, and I have. Just like Tiger Cardarella and Felix Farina were my cousins, distant cousins. Yeah. And obviously they were taking care of long before I was taken care of, I guess. but no, I bet you 100%. And that's the kind of a lot of respect I have for you, sir. Is just because you tell it from really an unbiased way, because you were on that behind the scenes, and I heard you talk about Anthony's a few times. I grew up in Anthony's. They used to make me tell dirty jokes on the bar, and like Teresa and Butch, they're my godparents and everything. So it's just for somebody that came after the fact, it's you do a good service for the whole all us crime junkies, you know.
Yeah, well, good. He talked about Tiger Carterell and Felix Farina. It's a little story about them back in the '60s. There was a guy, was Frankie Dale Sheets, and he was going to testify against a mob guy up from Omaha. There's some kind of a narcotics thing going. He was a drug addict. He got popped on something. He was going to testify against this mob associate up in Omaha, and he opens a screen door to his house one night when he comes home, and somebody says, "Hello." What is Frankie? Was it Johnny Dale or Frankie Dale? She said, "Oh, there's Johnny Dale," and they shot him. Shot him 2 or 3 times. And they said, Tony sent this as they walked by him on the way out, but he didn't die. He didn't die. And but they both had trials here in Jackson County. This was before there was still a little bit of hanky panky going on over in county courts, and they got the right judge, and so they tried the first one. They got separate trials, and they tried the first one, and he got him not guilty. And so the prosecutor said, "Well, we probably can't convict Tiger either." So then they try him.
I think Terrence talked about that. Terrence O'Malley talked about that in Black Man Strawman, if I recall.
Yeah, he did.
So, I got a little story about Tiger. I mean, it's my brother told me that my dad told him this but he said I guess they're in Vegas one time, and Tiger's he was a little guy, and I guess he had this girl this brought on him, and she goes, "Oh, you're so little and cutie." I guess he threw her off of her and tells her, "Bitch, where I come from, people stay in line to watch me piss." I go, that's pretty good. It's just
that's a good one.
Yeah, I don't know if it's true or not, but he said, like you always say, don't let the truth get involved.
The way of a good story. Yeah. You've been listening to me too close, man.
Yeah, well, I tell you, just you gotta listen because I'll be like I said, it helps me get through my crazy workday. I'm a manager. One of the worst mistakes I ever made in my life is, I'll be a manager.
But hey, Larry, what's your favorite movie?
Well, all the 4 named. I love all the Scorsese stuff. Departed, Goodfellas, Casino. I'm with Rob. Everything David Simon, The Wire, The Deuce. But Casey, you know this. The Friends of Eddie Coyle. It's got that neo noir, even that sort of '70s porn music sort of drifting.
It totally did. Yeah.
It's just, but what I really love about it is. It's those grinders. It's the people. It's gritty. It's not the glamour. It's not the romance, a romanticized version of any sort of criminality. But Robert Mitchum, his own arc of his own life, he'd gotten busted for pot in the '40s in L.A. And then he rose up, obviously to stardom. But then he was on his way out in his 50s and played a guy on his way out in the criminal world. So just that whole tragedy of a guy who's at the end of the line, and he's grasping to try to survive in that world with even a family, and he couldn't do it. They go to a Boston Bruins hockey game, and he sees the young stars on the ice, and they take him out and they kill him. It was just the tragedy of this guy whose life had no hope, but he kept grasping for hope. There's something about that movie that just keeps giving every time you watch it.
Yeah, it's a real anticlimactic ending in a good, you know what I mean? Like artistically done though. Like it doesn't end with some big, it just kind of, I'm like, wow, okay. That's it's depressing.
He just swirled around the drain until went down it.
Yeah. And kept hoping people would pull him out, and they wouldn't, and they betrayed him,
Yeah. So Daniel K., you don't have your microphone on, but you have a Bob movie. There you are.
I thank you. I do have my mic on.
Oh, okay.
I read The Godfather before it came out as a movie, and I remember seeing it in the '70s with my father when I was in high school. And it was my favorite movie until Goodfellas, because Goodfellas just seemed more authentic from what I've read and what I've heard.
All right. Authenticity.
Gary,
how important is authenticity, I think, in a mob movie? I think it's pretty important.
It's everything. I mean,
ask the makers of The Godfather of Harlem. They'll tell you how important it is.
God.
Really? Oh, we got one more. We got Smiley over here, who all I see is a Smiley. Are you on there, Smiley?
Is Smiley's mic off?
Yeah.
Looks like
He sent
He said Lilyhammer.
Lilyhammer, yeah, Lilyhammer.
Lilyhammer. Interesting.
Yeah, I was.
Oh, can you see? I can't see. Where's that? Oh, I see the chat. Oh, I see it
Oh,
now.
yeah.
I see it. I didn't have the chat. Okay. Thanks, Smiley. Okay. All right. They hit the nail on the head with that life having to start over. Yeah, it is interesting. What was the one with Steve Martin played Henry Miller in My Blue Heaven?
My Blue Heaven. It's a great movie.
and that was based on a mob guy having to start over again.
Yeah.
I mean, nobody can start over again like Steve Martin. I'll tell you that.
Well, that was a Henry Hill takeoff, right?
We've had a couple of them here in Kansas City. One of them, he set up a big game with Wyandotte County Sheriff over at Wyandotte County.
Oh, really?
And they set up a big gambling game that half the businessmen in Wyandotte County went to on Friday and Saturday nights, I think. And the feds found out about it. And when they busted, they found the guy that was kind of like set it all up for this sheriff or with this deputy sheriff was a relocated witness. Then I ran into one. He was, I did a podcast on, he was from Milwaukee. And he was running around telling everybody he was in the mafia. He was like a made guy in the mafia. He was German. He's a great big German dude, but he was telling everybody he was in the mafia and he could do this and he could do that. He fronted himself off as a drug dealer, and so we ran a DEA agent in on him, and she could buy like $20 worth. $30 worth, just as small amounts. And of course, DEA doesn't care about that. He kept saying he could get these pounds of marijuana. And I remember the DEA agent, her control, they said, "We'll make this guy into a drug dealer," because they needed to get him to sell enough drugs in order for them to make a case. So as they got closer and they bought more and more of these small amounts, and this guy kept telling everybody he was a mob guy, they go to the U.S. attorney and they say, we can't figure out who this guy is. I couldn't figure out who he was. He's just like he had no record. He dropped out of nowhere. And finally, we found out that he was in the witness protection program, and they had to drop their case. And then he left town right after that.
Wow.
So they have a different life once they. And like Sammy Gravano, hell, he just came back out. He's getting ready to start his own podcast. I understand. He
might as well have not read it. Yeah, he did.
Really?
Time to not read. He might as well just stay in prison and not read it.
Really?
I thought it was interesting, Gary, when you did your interview with Joe Pistone. Another good movie there. But when you were talking about on your podcast, I don't know why this never occurred to me. Just because he's so in the public, nowadays.
Yeah.
I don't really think of him as being like undercover or anything anymore.
Yeah.
But you were saying he was really difficult to get a hold of, and I was like, yeah, I guess he would be. He's going to have to spend the rest of his life constantly being, skeptical of who he's in contact with, and it just didn't even occur to me because I see him so much now that he's still kind of in a hiding in a way.
Yeah, in a way he is. I'm not sure if he really needs to be, but I probably better safe than sorry. I got a feeling.
Yeah.
But I mean,
well, speaking of Joe Pistone, what's the group's opinion of the movie Donnie Brasco? It didn't really come up.
I like it a lot.
I put it in top 5. Yeah.
I did too. Absolutely.
I thought it was terrific.
Yeah, I did too. I liked it.
Now, a lot of
Johnny Depp did a pretty good job.
Yeah, Johnny Depp being one of my favorite actors of all time, and then obviously Al Pacino. I mean, just the whole, you think that there's a gangster right in front of you. I mean, Al Pacino. Obviously, it's Al Pacino. He kills everything, but it's just. I remember I watched if you guys have watched the deleted scenes where they're talking, the director's talking about. He's like, he's out because like Lefty always had his hair slicked back, and he goes, Al Pacino went over her head. He goes, I'm not going to argue with that fucking hat. He goes, wear the hat. But he just, it was really, really crazy. And that whole Fierce City deal about Bruno Delicata, that I really know that they found the whole palm print. I didn't know that back then.
I didn't either.
That was interesting.
So Gary, was that like no one practice? Like, have you guys always done the whole, like just the fingertips? Like they had to go back and get real different prints of his palm.
Depends on who's taking the prints and what they're for. Like actually that lady I interviewed the other day, and that was coming out in the morning, and she said they had to get what they call major case fingerprints.
Yeah, major case.
They do the whole palms, the whole hand and fingerprints. Sometimes you just do the prints like that, but you don't do the palms. So like I had my fingerprints taken not too long ago and at the police department, and they just did that they didn't do my palm. So I guess depends on what you're arrested for. I guess I never went up much of a fingerprint expert.
Now they just scan your face.
Yeah, really.
Yeah. That's the thing I always
Hold
bust
their
my dad's
phone
balls
up.
about. I used to bust my dad's balls. I go, you don't know how good you had it all, man. Back then they had no DNA. They had barely fingerprints.
Really?
You didn't have your picture on your license. So what, the 60s? I mean, you guys had it made back then. They had
Really?
cameras everywhere.
I thought that was the most interesting part for me of the Valachi papers was when he talked about doing all those, things that he did back in the day, and they're like, they didn't even have alarm systems, and
Yeah.
they didn't even have stoplights, and he was like, the only way you could get caught is if a cop on the beat happened to walk by and catch you.
Yeah.
And you happen to not have 5 months salary for me in your pocket, which you probably do.
Yeah. It's
Really.
amazing, how fast that changed. It's no wonder that more mob bosses didn't go to jail sooner because, all these people talk, like us on these groups and stuff about all the mistakes these guys made. And I'm like, man, these guys grew up in a time when things change so fast, as
really.
far as bugs and DNA and fingerprinting and RICO laws, everything just changed within a 30-year period.
Yeah.
Especially with all with civil rights and everything. Back then, if you didn't talk, they probably beat it out of you. And then what are you gonna do? And it was a harder time to grow up, and it's kind of hard to wonder. It's not to quote Tommy Lee Jones from No Country for Old Men, but how would they have operated these times?
Really, they couldn't have these times. Hey, Mike, I got a question as an actor. Who do you think plays the best mobsters and why?
I always loved Frank Vincent. Frank Vincent.
Oh.
He was
I mean,
good.
I just loved him as a mob actor. It was so believable.
Yeah, he was just so matter of fact about what he did.
Right. Didn't seem like he was even trying. He was just, it was just him.
The movie he did in Chicago was Chicago Overcoat.
Chicago Overcoat. Yeah.
That was a good movie. Yeah,
it's a sleeper.
It really is. It really is.
I think I YouTubed that one, just expected nothing from it, and I was like, it's just like that's when I first saw that Armand Assante Godfather one or Gotti one. I didn't expect much of it, but
he killed. Oh, he was amazing.
Yeah, Vincent, good one. Good choice.
Okay, well, we've been here a little over an hour. I got a message from them. They said we could stay over 40 minutes. I think I mentioned there, since I don't have a paid account, I can only do this for 40 minutes. And I got a message from them that said, click here and we'll let you go over. So we're going over, but it is now 9:11, so I'm starting to fade out myself. So I appreciate everybody coming on there. I hope y'all had fun, and email me.
Absolutely.
Email me back that Gangland wire and just give me your thoughts on doing this and any improvements you might think of. And I'm not sure exactly what we're going to do, but I can do some more of these. I may have to get a professional account. I don't know. It's like $15 a month. But I
might
don't
be
know.
good to narrow it. Maybe we narrow down the subject to what you're saying, like maybe to something like this, just to an actor or a single movie or documentaries or something. So it's not such a wide.
Oh yeah.
The more narrow you make the topic, plus it also makes it a lot easier to edit for you, Gary.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Yeah. Thanks for doing it.
Gary, absolutely.
Thank you for doing it, Gary.
But I'll have to
great seeing everybody.
Do some studying.
Absolutely.
Yeah, good
Nice
to see a lot of
you.
you guys. I interact with you on
Gary.
Facebook all the time, and now I see what how you sound and what you look like. So I'm glad y'all could come on here.
It was very good.
Everybody.
All right. Good night, everybody.
Good
night,
gentlemen.
guys.
Good night.
Good evening.
All right.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.